This day was such a beautiful day here in Toronto. The temperature was warm and the sky was a beautiful bright azure blue. So I decided I would hop on my bike to go see a show at the Museum of Contemporary Art in the West End of Toronto. Since it was such a beautiful day, I thought I would pack up some sketchbooks and a few art supplies for some outdoor sketching. I try not to take too much equipment with me, just some basic materials. I have a small sketchbook that I use for quick sketches, usually while I'm sitting in the car. And I also packed this larger sketchbook, but I actually didn't end up using this one. I have a couple of small pencil cases for some pencils, markers, and pencil crayons. And I'll also take this little kit that I fill with a mixture of watercolor and gouache paints. So with my bag all packed, I'm gonna jump on my bike and head to the Museum of Contemporary Art. To get to the museum, I've got to head west on Bloor Street. Bloor is a pretty major road in Toronto, and the east-west subway line also runs beneath it. I've been living in Toronto for about 30 years, and I've never been to the Museum of Contemporary Art. It used to be located closer to the city center on Queen Street West, but they relocated to an old factory in 2018, which they've since renovated. And this neighborhood is what some real estate agents would probably refer to as up and coming, so it's still a work in progress, you might say. So the reason why I've never been to this museum, and I don't know if you can actually call it a museum if the work is contemporary, but the reason I've never been is that I actually don't really like a lot of contemporary art these days. I don't want to have to read a wall of text just to understand what I'm looking at. And I think art should primarily be a visual experience, and I like to figure out the work myself just by taking the time to look and to think. But I decided to go today because I read in the paper that there was a new show of paintings by a local artist whose work I've been watching for a few years. The Mocha is kind of in the middle of nowhere at the moment. It does really feel like you're in the middle of a construction site, which is really how it feels to live in Toronto these days. This area is in the process of being revitalized from industrial to commercial and residential. The Mocha has two entrances, one through the back park space and then one at the street entrance. There's also another artist, Justin Ming Yong, who's showing some quilts. And generally I love quilts. I think there's a real overlap with collage in the bold colors and the graphic shapes. But I do find it a bit odd that quilt making, which has this long historic craft tradition, is now being reframed as contemporary art. But I guess it's a symptom of our age and a kind of general flattening of hierarchies. So I do appreciate the design and graphic quality of modern quilts. I just prefer to use them on my bed. How do we get to the Margot Williamson? Oh, okay, thank you. It was interesting to see these quilts wrapping objects, and I liked the elevator interiors, which were lined with custom-made quilts. It reminded me of moving elevators where the interior is wrapped in thick blankets where the space inside is so quiet and soft and cozy. So here on the third floor is the exhibition of paintings by Margot Williamson called Shoes, Books, Hands, Buildings, and Cars. It does seem a bit anachronistic to see traditional paintings in a contemporary art space, But up here on the third floor, these are the only artwork, so they don't have to compete with any of the other contemporary pieces here at the MoCA. When I look at the paintings, I like to get up close to see how the canvas was constructed. I like to see how the canvas was stretched and just to check out the edges and how thickly or thinly the paint was applied. I've known about Margot Williamson's work for maybe just under 10 years or so. She's associated with a loose collective of Toronto artists that include Leanne Shapton and the writer Sheila Heti. I'm always interested in contemporary painters that are from the same geographical location as me. Somehow, I think that because we're living in the same time and space, that they're somehow more relatable. And I like knowing that they're seeing and responding to the same things that I also have seen and experienced. These paintings are like imaginary landscapes that seem to capture more of the feeling of the places they're depicting. A way that really helps me understand the painting is to sit down and actually make a sketch. I find that this way I'm really forced to slow down and pay attention to what I'm looking at. And these sketches are just exercises, just a way to understand and to document my experience. They really help me to see. And when I sit down to look at a painting and try to understand its structure, I find it really helps to make some sketches and some color notes. This painting is called In the Museum, and I felt like I was inside this exact exhibit looking at the exhibit. It's kind of like that effect where you're looking at a mirror and behind you is another mirror. So there's some kind of recursive loop of reflection. It's like this infinity space. Looking at this mostly gray painting inside the dull buzzing of the gallery, I was thinking again about how strange it was to be inside a former factory looking at contemporary art. This painting was also interesting to me. You can see the bright white of the fluorescent lights, a t-shirt, a sink with some water. There are parts of this painting that are really loose and gestural, and then there are also parts that look like this illusion of the way she's rendering water. It looks so realistic. As I'm continuing to sketch, I keep noticing more things about the paintings that I'm finding interesting. Even though her compositions are quirky, they are balanced, and I like how she includes these modern little details like iPhones and laptops. These paintings seem on the one hand really loose, but also illusionistic at the same time. The paint is applied really thinly in some areas, almost like an underpainting, and sometimes she leaves these patches with no paint at all, with just the white gesso peeking through. The composition of these paintings are not optically exact like a photo, and I find that really interesting. In this side of the gallery space were the last 4 paintings of the show. I really like this painting with the flower and the paper cup. And then this painting of a wooden table and chairs was really interesting compositionally. Again, she's got a really loose, almost underpainted area coupled with more illusionistic bottles and just everyday items. And even this cabbage in a bag has this charming quirkiness. The fact that she's painted the cabbage inside a clear shopping bag with the iPhone on the table. I liked how my eye was moving around the painting. The wood pattern was great visual texture, and to really look at this painting, I sat down and made another sketch. If you find yourself in Toronto, I would recommend this show. I think it's on until August 3rd. So now I'm heading back to the cozy elevator to go back outside and to find some place to sit in the sun and do a couple of more sketches. I left the mocha through the back entrance, and even though it's in the middle of a construction site, you can see they are trying to make it some kind of destination. It has a cafe, and there's this fun green hill that was packed with kids. So the mocha is really close to the West Toronto rail path, and this is a 2-kilometer trail beside a functioning rail line that runs north to south through a neighborhood known as the Junction Triangle. It's great to have a trail for pedestrians and cyclists, but even though it opened in 2009, it always seems to be under construction, which is a consistent theme here in Toronto. Here is a rendering of this space from the City of Toronto website, and here it is in reality. They recently built these big noise barriers, which makes it feel like more of a tunnel, but this day is so great, and the spring is such a short season, and I just want to appreciate all these really interesting plant forms that exist so briefly. They're such a fascinating thing to look at. So I decided to sit on some stairs where I have a better view without looking at the noise barrier. Occasionally a train or some cyclists will go by. I just want to sit down and do a little sketching just to be outside and to practice looking. When you sit and sketch, there's so many more things that just unfold to your eye. So I usually start a sketch by blocking something out. I try to be really loose. I'm just playing with colors and shapes. Just not thinking too hard about the overall composition. I liked how the windows were basically the same color as the sky. And those green stripes at the bottom are for all the trains that are going by. The day started to get really windy, so I just rotated my view and did another quick sketch. This one was not one of my favorites, but I really like the pink and the green graffiti on those dumpsters. So after that last sketch, I decided to pack up. It was such a great day to be outside. I can really spread out when I start to work, so I'm just collecting all my supplies, and I noticed one of those little flowers had already fallen from the tree beside me. Spring is just so fleeting. I hopped on my bike and I went down the rest of the rail path and along College Street towards home. Before I wrap up this video, I just wanted to show you all of these trees that are out blooming. That's a magnolia there, and this one is either a cherry or an apple blossom. So now that I'm back in the studio, I thought I'd just quickly share some more information about the shows at the MoCA. Both the quilts by Justin Ming Yong and the paintings by Margot Williamson are up until August 3rd. I thought it was an interesting exhibit. I always love looking at paintings and quilts, and I was happy just to be outside and to do some sketching. So thanks for watching. Bye.